Hello, Senator Babette, and welcome to Spectator TV. Now, you were in The Spectator this week. You've written an article about a sex book that's been written for children. What's that about? What's going on?
I tell you what it's about. It's about degeneracy. That's what it's about. It's about the slide downhill of traditional conservative values. It's about us as a society failing our most vulnerable, which is obviously our children. So to give you a bit of background that haven't seen this sex book, it's actually called Welcome to Sex. It's, as far as I'm concerned, a children's Kama Sutra. That's what it is. In the book, it has all sorts of different sex acts, and amongst other things, I believe it teaches children how to perform those sex acts, among other topics like transgenderism, et cetera, et cetera. This book was written by Melissa Kang and Yumi Steins. Now, Yumi Stein said on her Instagram, she made a post about the book, and she said, look, this book, as far as she was concerned, should be happy for a mature 8-year-old to flick through the book. Now, a mature 8-year-old does not exist. So I took great offence to the book. And the reason why I did was because it was targeted at such young children. 8 years old, I mean, come on. The only thing that an 8-year-old should know about sex is that a boy should think that girls have cuties and girls should think that boys are gross. That should be the extent of an 8-year-old's sexual knowledge. But this book, like I said before, filled with all sorts of garbage and filth. I've talked about this in the Senate. I've also put a video up on YouTube as well, and the article, like you mentioned, in The Spectator. If parents want to see more about it, go and have a look. But I think the big problem that we're facing here in our society today is the sexualization of ever younger and younger children. Us as a society, we need to make a decision right now, draw a line in the sand and say, you know what, we're not okay with sexualizing kids at all. Now, this book has no classification, so you can just pick it up from your local, Big W or something like this. And I think that the book should at least be classified, some sort of classification, MA15, maybe PG, I'm not sure, but something at least. So I've actually written to the communications minister, and I've said, look, can you have a look at this book? I don't think it's okay. Let's do something about it. So Liberal Party, I hope you get behind me, because you're supposed to be the party of conservative, traditional values. Let's get this book sorted out.
And why do you think people want to expose young children to such shocking sexual practices that you'd normally find only in an adults-only sex shop, not in a shop like Big W? No, look, I think society as a whole is on a downhill trajectory. What we've done is we've let the lunatics out of the asylum, and then these lunatics have now gotten positions in the bureaucracy and obviously in the halls of power around government as well. And now they're in charge. People will call me a right-wing conspiracy conservative, hard right conservative. I'm not a hard right conservative. I'm a normal, ordinary person from 15 years ago. That's all I am, because 15 years ago, if you had come out on your social media channels, like Yumi Steins has said, and said, let's teach children sex acts. I'll give you a quick example. I won't describe. Let's teach children about anal sex, scissoring, transgenderism, and how to give blowjobs. This is in the book. These are titles in the book. You would have looked at me like I was crazy, like I was mad. Now these things are being accepted as normal. The problem is we've let the hard left activist types have too much free reign over our society. And this is the issue. People who I guess would be typically centre-right or conservative leaning, all they want to do is go to work, pay their bills, have a quiet life, raise their kids. They don't have time to be acting like activists out there, changing laws and pushing radical theories on other people. They just want to be left alone. And this is a point I'd like to make. If you're a conservative, if you're sick of things like this and everything else that's going on in our society today, you've got to take an interest in the political process. You have to have your voice heard. You have to say, you know what, I'm not okay with this. I'm not voting for that person or this person. Take an interest in who governs you and push back, because the left-wing nut jobs, they're in there every day. They're fighting for what they believe in, which in this case right here is the sexualization of ever younger and younger children, in my opinion. They're pushing for that. You've got to push back as well. Luckily, you've got guys like me in there that are fighting every single day for conservative values, of course.
but I can't do it alone. I need you to get behind me, get behind the UAP, or get behind another Conservative that you agree with, and promote that person and help them fight for your rights and help them fight for your family, literally, in the halls of power.
Well, look, you've also written an article in The Spectator about Labor's misinformation bill. The thing that puzzles me about it is that it's almost identical to a bill that was tabled by Liberal Communications Minister at the time, Paul Fletcher. Now, why do you think the Liberal Party walked away from what are foundational values such as freedom of speech during the pandemic and put forward a bill like that? I don't understand. Perhaps you can explain.
I know exactly why. I can absolutely explain why. Now, this is obviously my opinion, and my opinion is based on what I've seen around the halls of power, around Parliament. The people that are in charge of the Liberal Party are the very same people that are in charge of the Labor Party. These two establishment parties are controlled by one and the same special interests. And you don't have, this is not a conspiracy. It's very easy to see. You've got the WHO pulling strings, you've got the UN pulling strings, you've got the World Economic Forum pulling strings, and most importantly, you have what Trump described as the deep state pulling strings as well. On top of that, you add another layer, you've got the bureaucracy behind the two major parties, the bureaucrats, the faceless bureaucrats that sit in the background. Now, these faceless bureaucrats that are in charge of departments and things like this throughout Canberra and, your state parliament, your federal parliament, doesn't matter. These people are not accountable because these people are never voted in and they never voted out. It doesn't matter if Prime Minister Albanese is in power now, or if next election Mr. Peter Dutton becomes a new Prime Minister, those people stay exactly where they are. And they have such a massive amount of control over the policies that the party that is in government at that time will implement. So if you want to change your country, if you want to do better, you have to target the bureaucrats and make sure that the bureaucrats are accountable. Your elected representatives, be they senators or your local member in your area, has to have the kahunas, has to have the gumption to say, hey, you know what? You unelected, faceless bureaucrats in the background, screw you. I'm not going to put this globalist agenda, this globalist plan in place. I'm going to do what's best for my country. Now, the Liberal Party, they've lost their way. We all know they've lost their way. They've just become Labor light. I'll give you some examples. Labor wants to constitutionally enshrine the voice. The Liberal Party comes along and says, no, it's okay. We'll just legislate it instead. Labor wants to hit net zero by X day in X way. The Liberal Party goes, we'll hit net zero as well, but we'll do it by Y date and by Y way. Right? Pretty similar so far. The Liberal Party comes up with the idea for the misinformation, disinformation bill. Right? They don't get it up for whatever reason. The Labor Party grabs a baton and then they say, don't worry, we'll put it in instead, and we'll probably make it a little bit worse, because that's usually what the Labor Party does. So these two parties, it's so very clear. You just have to look at it for more than 2 seconds and you can see that they're controlled by the same special interests. Stop voting for the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. They're cooked, they're done. There is no hope there anymore. There is no hope. Look for conservative minor parties instead. Doesn't have to be the UAP, can be something else, you choose.
So here's my question then. What we see over and over again with businesses is if they go woke, they go broke. So we know that a vast majority of consumers hate all this woke nonsense. So why, I can understand that perhaps the Labor Party sort of thinks that this woke will get them a certain distance, but why is the Liberal Party going woke when so many ordinary people who they must want to vote for them are so against all this woke stuff?
Look, the Liberal Party, it's a party that, I think has been corrupted from within. That's what's happened. People are joining the party that don't ascribe to their founding principles. They don't ascribe to their we believe statement. For the people at home right now that may be watching this broadcast, once you're done watching this and you've consumed the other content on this platform, go ahead to the Liberal Party website and have a read of their we believe statement. Their we believe statement is a tour de force in freedom, in everything that's good and wholesome in the world, in conservative traditional values. Is fantastic, but they don't stick to it. They take a whiz on it, is what they do. As far as I can see, and I'm in the Senate right now, and that's what I can see every single day for most of their members anyway. So I think they've been taken over from the inside by woke lefty activists, and these woke lefty activists have changed the party internally. That's what they've done. And the other problem with the Liberal Party is I think that that they've neglected the culture war completely and utterly. Now, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to at least dabble in the culture wars, because the culture of today eventually becomes the politics of the future. So by neglecting culture completely, what you end up with is the school system, and we've seen this already, churning out children that are basically Marxists. Marxist is what they're churning out of the school system today. And these kids, obviously grow up and they go through the system, and they end up influencing the politics. So Liberal Party, you were in power for 3 election cycles straight. You had a chance to change what happens through the school system, as one example, and you did nothing about it. So you're reaping what you sowed what you sowed previously right now, because back then you didn't stand up for your traditional conservative values. And now it's up to guys like me to put a line in the sand, put the flag down, and fight for these values. And now they've made my job and other people's jobs so much harder because of their reluctance to do anything about it when they had the chance.
So you mentioned net zero. Here's my question. On the one hand, we see Australia, it's hastening as quickly as it can to shut down all its coal-fired power stations. Meanwhile, China is building new ones every week. It's kind of committing to increasing the whole fleet that Australia has just in a few months. So why does no one who supposedly believes that this is cooking the planet comment on why is China being given a free pass?
Correct. They get a free pass. All the green activists, especially the Greens in the Senate where I sit, not one of them's talked about China. They're so passionate about deindustrialising Australia and shutting down our country here. Why don't you direct some of your comments towards the CCP? Why don't you do that instead? So China has approved 106 gigawatts of new coal-fired projects in the last year. That's 5 times more than all the coal-fired power stations in Australia's national electricity market, just in the last year. Crazy. China, in my opinion, they have infiltrated our nation. They've infiltrated the halls of power, and they've somehow convinced us here in Australia to shut down our nation, deindustrialise, send all of our manufacturing offshore, of course, to their benefit, while they do none of it. And I think our politicians are doing our nation a disservice, an absolute disservice. Yes, I think that we need to do better for the environment, absolutely. But the science on climate change is so far from settled, but our politicians are acting like it's a done deal, it's settled, this is what's happening, etc. Even if it was settled, even if that was the case, you got to look at China, you got to keep them accountable. They've got to do what I believe they're making everyone else do, what they're influencing every other country to do. They've got to do it as well. And right now they're not. And that puts us at a strategic disadvantage. It reduces our standard of living. It increases their, you know what I think is happening? I think that, China is orchestrating the orderly takeover of Australia and other Western nations. That's what they're doing. And they're doing it economically. They don't even need to fire a shot. They don't even need to do that. They sign contracts. They infiltrate the institutions. They infiltrate the educational system, and they gain control of us that way. Absolute rubbish. I won't stand for it. More coal, more gas, higher standard of living, make our nation great again.
Well, look, I think that's all we've got time for, but thank you so much for coming on to Spectator TV, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future, Senator Babet.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.